Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United transfer news on the last day of the football financial year. Have we had anything done? No, it will only be Cunha. We are not going to get anybody else before this new financial year, but big updates coming in this afternoon from the sporting director at Brentford, who is saying that it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Mbeumo stays at Brentford. We will give you his direct quotes in a moment. Also, Chelsea, despite buying half of Europe in the attack, could still sign Garnacho. We've got an update on that one as well as something from Ben Jacobs about a midfielder and what is going on with Ollie Watkins, what is going on with Emi Martinez. Would you take both? Will we get neither? Are United seriously going to move for either of those Villa players that Emery wants to get rid of? Get your thoughts in on that. Of course, we did do the video a couple of hours ago about that breaking story. I hope you're all doing very well. Anyway, lots for us to get into, and we're going to start off by talking about what Brentford's sporting director has said about the Bryan Mbeumo situation. He says this: Brian's got his own ideas about the direction he wants to take his career, and he has every right to do so, i.e. wants to come to Manchester United. We are in constant dialogue with him and his representatives about this deal. As things stand, we do not have an agreement in place for him to leave. It's not impossible that he'll still be a Brentford player next season. It has to be the right deal for Brentford. If it isn't, why would we agree to it? And you know what? It's funny. It's funny. It's not funny. It's funny in the way that Brentford's sporting director has given us the most clarity on a deal we've been working on for 5 weeks. Why is the Brentford sporting director sitting doing interviews and ours won't? That's the first thing that came into my head, was that, look, I think Mbeumo is going to sign for Manchester United. I'm absolutely certain of it. But why is the sporting director of Brentford giving a big interview like that about what Brentford are up to? And at United, we get nothing. We get absolutely nothing about anything. Lee says, do you think it's negotiating tactics? Lee, I'll tell you what I think it is. I'll tell you what I know it is. Reister says Brentford can stick this deal up there, Mbeumo. You know what this is? This is quite simply a football club that doesn't need to sell, telling Manchester United and the world that we don't need to sell, that the deal needs to be right for Brentford, and why would we agree with for a deal that isn't? The most important words for me in that were that Mbeumo wants to come to Man United and Man United want to sign him. I know he didn't say that, but that's very, very obvious. But the most important words were, we haven't got an agreement in place with Manchester United. It's not impossible that he still plays because we haven't got a deal in place. We will only do the right deal for us. Why would we agree to something that isn't the right deal for us? And I think that it just goes back to what many of you have said so many times. What are we negotiating for? We're trying to negotiate down a price that Brentford set at the start that they don't need to negotiate down. Bryan Mbeumo is not on strike. Bryan Mbeumo is not refusing to go back on pre-season. We haven't got that. We haven't got the fundamentals of forcing this deal to be cheaper. And Brentford don't need to sell. So I think from United's point of view, you're sort of looking at it again, and it's very reminiscent of... I actually, for a laugh, this morning was watching my video reaction to Harry Maguire. Here we go. And I just wanted to see what I said about it. But while I was listening to it, I actually said, I'm really happy to sign Harry Maguire, but what frustrates me about this deal is that it's gone on for too long. We knew what Leicester wanted. We've negotiated nothing, and it's took us a longer time to get here. So Red Rebel says we're waiting for the new financial year. Mate, as I said to you before, many of you before, maybe we are waiting for the new financial year, but we're not going to... Let me put it this way. If we're waiting till tomorrow to sign Mbeumo, we'll be signing him for 60 million. We're not waiting for tomorrow to buy him for 55. They've turned our offers down. Brentford would have sold him to us in June. Still is June. People saying we're waiting till July the 1st. There's not even any logic to what you're saying. They've turned our bids down because we've not offered what they want. When we offer 60 million, we'll get the deal done. So what's July the 1st got to do with that? What are you telling Are you basically saying that United have been messing around on purpose for 4 weeks because they don't want to spend the money until July when they'll offer what they want? I mean, that's just a really weird way to run a summer transfer window, to spend 4 weeks negotiating on a deal that you know you're going to pay £60 million for in July. I mean, we could have been working on some other stuff, couldn't we? But I think this deal will still happen. He also went on to say that Brian is one of our best players, if not our best player, and we need our best player. There's no harm in us keeping our best players. And he also said there's a lot of interest in Brian. I think his preference is well known, but he's also happy to stay if he does. Let's see what happens. Look, that I do agree with Lee. I think there's an element of... it's a bit like a dick measuring contest, really, isn't it? What Brentford are doing is saying, look, we won't be bullied. We know what we've got, and we're confident. And if you don't pay the price we want, you won't get the player. That's all that's happening. I think we will pay it, but we've sort of got ourselves into a bit of a mess again by negotiating for so long, and so many fans are going to look at it again and go, so we spent 5 or 6 weeks negotiating a price that Brentford demanded on day one, and we paid after 6 weeks. And for United, it's a bit of a difficult one now, because they're either just going to have to pay it, and everyone will go, what were you negotiating for? Or they'll have to walk away, which they won't. So ultimately, we'll get the deal done. But you know, I think it's just, you know, typical United, really. But very interesting that the sporting director has spoken, and it just puts a public message out there of what's happening. Woeful Wilcox, same outcome as the other jokers, says Nathan. Yeah, but to be fair to Jason Wilcox, he has got JJ Gabriel to stay at the football club. So he might be taking 6 weeks to get Mbeumo in, but he has got the 14-year-old superstar to stay at the football club as well. So he is doing some things good. We need to get João Neves. He is a cutie, says Nana. Okay. Mark, did you know that Barcelona's airport is called El Prat? It sounds suitable for Rashford to go there, says Patrick. Thank you very much, Patrick, there as well. Let's move it along, though. I want to talk about what we were talking about with the Watkins deal. I'm not going to go over old ground, don't worry about that. But within the same article that Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic wrote about signing Watkins, you can watch that video earlier. We might bring in it a little bit later. But I did say towards the end of that video that Man United's link to Watkins through Laurie Whitwell and The Athletic could be a bit of positive PR at the end of June from the club to say, well, look, we're doing stuff, when actually, when you read the article, there's not really a lot of detail in there. It talks about intermediaries. It talks about it not actually being concrete. So realistically, it's a big drop about a striker that we're not even in talks with. Is that convenient at the end of a crap June in the transfer window for Man United? Because yet again, we've done nothing in June. I know Cunha was officially announced in June, but we knew that deal was happening in April. We've done no sales and no purchases in June at all. So maybe a drop about Watkins at the end helps the club out a little bit. But the interesting thing that I didn't mention on that video that is in the article as well is regardless of whether we've been in for Watkins or intermediaries or whatever, we haven't actually spoken to Villa. We're not actually negotiating with Watkins. And even if we did start doing that, how long would it take? If we started talking to Watkins tomorrow, how many weeks do you think it would take to sign him? I don't think he'd be in before the middle of August. But the article does say this. Amorim would like a reunion with Gyökeres. But at this stage, his priority is obviously Arsenal. Osimhen's wages are viewed as too high, and Frankfurt's 100 million price tag on Ekitike is beyond United's current means. So wherever we are with this striker situation at the moment, it does acknowledge again that Amorim's preference is Gyökeres, that Victor Osimhen's wages are too high, and that Ekitike's fee is too high. So we are still very much in that striker situation, which I find concerning, that whoever we decide to go for, we're not going for anybody at the moment. And we're not going for anybody tomorrow. And in a week, we're back for pre-season. We might start pre-season and not be in talks for a striker. I mean, they're meant to be there for pre-season, and we might start pre-season without even being in talks with a striker. So if you start pre-season without being in talks for a striker, you and I know how many weeks it takes United to go from talks to here we go. As I said to you before, we're not going to have a striker on the US tour. We might not even have him for the Arsenal game. Jan says, could Ineos be waiting for July so that next summer they can say that there is no room for spending while being active in 2 windows for the price of one, says Jan. I mean, God knows what the plan is, mate. As I said last night, I don't think they have a plan. Barada sat there, didn't he, a month ago and said, we've been planning this transfer window for ages. Well, what's the plan? We're still waiting to see it. Mike says, my personal opinion, go all in on Gyökeres, not as expensive as the rest and will score tons of goals and he knows the system, just do it. I would agree. But if Arsenal want him, he'll go to Arsenal, won't he? A well-run club would sit Rashi down and remind him it's his last chance to play in a World Cup. Should be full sail or not play and risk no England, says Adzi. And Javier Hernandez says, Mbeumo knows there's no I in team, but there's an I in pie. And there's an I in meat pie. Meat is the anagram of team. I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, you lost me. JJ Gabriel says 1 inch wonder. Messi reborn. We're saved. And Emily Derry says we just don't have any clue when to negotiate and when to pay up. And this is the price you pay when you have a team of inexperienced personnel. I certainly think there'll be a conspiracy theory, as one of you mentioned before. I certainly think there'll be a conspiracy theory if we do sign Mbeumo in the next couple of days for 60 million. Surely a club of the stature of Manchester United won't have wasted a whole month publicly to just go and pay what Brentford want on July the 1st. I mean, surely that wasn't the plan, but I guess we'll see. Sammy D says, if the Bus family sold off the Lakers, there is hope the Glazers will sell off United. Big team, new big owners. Yeah, I wouldn't start working off that, really. I'm getting a little bit worried about Xerxes as a false 9 talk, says DV. United signed some players. Big up Goldbridge, says it's your boy Calv. Hope you're doing well, mate. Maybe Brentford sees United as a direct rival, says Abhishek. Explains all the haggling about and is also Malassi under the new Phil Jones. Mark, we can't keep dropping our trousers, says Scott Treacher. It's pants. Okay. I don't know what you're talking about there, but sorry, I'm just asking something about transfers here. Yeah, look, I think I've got no clue in general. No, I mean, I've got no clue what's going to happen with the striker situation. I actually, look, let me add this in. So I'm starting to come to a conclusion about this Watkins story. And I didn't really have the detail when I did the show earlier. But just reading the rest of the article. So it starts off with United have held talks with intermediaries of Watkins, but there's nothing concrete at the moment. It then goes on to say that Amorim would like a Gyökeres reunion, but he wants Arsenal. Osimhen's too expensive, and so is Ekitike. And then I start to think, if we're not in talks with Watkins and we inquired through intermediaries, when did we do that? Because I already know about Gyökeres and Arsenal. I already know about Osimhen's wages, and I already know about Ekitike's fee. So is this just a story with a little bit of something we didn't know from a couple of months ago, but is effectively old news? Is this whole article just old news with the added Watkins bit that we didn't know? When did we speak to Watkins? Was it 2 months ago? Was it 2 days ago? Because I already know about Gyökeres, I already know about Ekitike, and I already know about Osimhen. So if Watkins was back in May that we spoke to intermediaries, because it mentions Rashford, then this is just a rehash of old news. Because it also goes on to mention that Nkunku is coming up in discussions between Chelsea and United, who are also in touch on Garnacho. And again, I ask the question, is this just old news regurgitated for a headline around Watkins? Or is it new news and Chelsea are in for Garnacho still, and we are still considering Nkunku still, and Watkins is a new target? And I don't know. I don't know, because I think so much around United, you can't trust United. You can't trust United not to rehash stories to create positive PR. If it's new news, what the hell are Chelsea doing in for Garnacho still? I mean, they bought Gittins, they bought Pedro, they bought Delap, they've got Estavo coming in from Palmeiras. What the hell is going on? Like, what actually is going on with Garnacho still being a target for Chelsea? But the interesting thing is that when you look at, and look, you shouldn't go off these, but if they were a source, I'd call them, you know, the Daily Mail. They can be right, they can be wrong. But looking at the betting odds on where Garnacho will be at the start of this season, 8-1 Napoli, 10-1 Manchester United, 12-1 Aston Villa, 12-1 Bayer Leverkusen. Odds on Chelsea. Not even 2-1. He's odds on to go to Chelsea even now. So are we missing something here? Are Chelsea just doing what Chelsea do? They don't care about how many they've got. They just want to buy up as many players with potential under 23 that they can stockpile and sell on or become a good team with. Because as long as we don't get Nkunku, if Chelsea want to pay us money for Garnacho, then at least it's a way out. We just need somebody to do something with around Garnacho. And I found it quite interesting that in the Athletic article, it still says Chelsea, Garnacho. And that's an article from today. And I would expect a decent journalist not to put that in an article that they wrote today if they know that's old news. So MJ says Chelsea's not buying Garnacho. Loads of Chelsea fans have been talking on social media about the article saying it's bullshit, it's old news, why is it being put out there? And that's the question about the whole article, really. Is it new news or is it rehashed old news? Are Chelsea still in for Garnacho? It mentions Nkunku. When did we get linked to Watkins? So, look, I hope it's true. I mean, some people might say they hope it's not true because they don't want Watkins, but I hope it is true because I hope Chelsea are still looking at Garnacho because we honestly don't need to sell him to Chelsea, but we do need somebody to be interested. Somebody to be interested. And at the moment, they're not. Mark, now we've signed JJ Gabriel, Heaven and Leon and Obi and streamlined canteen operations, would you now agree with the majority when we say we're back, Wilcox at the wheel? Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, you know, we've got some superstar teenagers and we've streamlined the canteen. I mean, if that's not it's basically what Sir Alex Ferguson said in his book. And I think Sir Bobby Robson wrote about that as well. I'm pretty sure Pep's mentioned it numerous times. And apparently Klopp's got a book coming out soon as well, and he's going to put it in his. If there's one thing that combines and unites every top manager in history, it's that if you want to be successful, you must only feed your first team and make the rest of your staff bring in a packed lunch. Don't even give them a free coffee. On top of that, neglect your first team and basically just sign a load of players under 18. And you won't just win the Premier League, you'll win the treble. You'll win the treble. Napoli won't happen, I think. They've just signed a left winger, says Jacob. I haven't been keeping an eye on Napoli. If they have, then that's another door closed. And that was the best door at the start of the month. But we have been told numerous times that Garnacho has had a 180 and wants to stay in the Premier League now. Scott Treacher says we keep giving clubs what they want for the last 12 years. Yeah, I mean, that does need to change. And Ben Martinson says, at this moment, what makes you think United will finish higher than 12th? In America, my friends keep saying we're shit, and I got nothing to say. You just agree, mate. That's the best thing to do. You can't argue. If someone says that's shit, and you're treading it, and it's shit, you can't say it's chocolate mousse. And certainly don't try and kid people by tasting it. We'll end up with Josh King with these negotiators, says Mario Franco. Thank you very much for that. And Javier Hernandez says, is Man United starting to become the Premier League's version of the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Yankees? Everyone hates us because they ain't us, says Javier. I thought you were going to say, have we become the equivalent of the Dallas Cowboys because we're a massive, well-known brand that never wins anything? In which case, yes. But I don't agree that everybody hates us because they ain't us. Not anymore. Ronan says you should go for Theo Hernandez. He's perfect for the left wing back role and easily can get him for cheap. We haven't got the money to go for Theo Hernandez, Ronan. We won't be buying a left back. We can't even buy a bloody midfielder. We might not even buy a bloody striker. So we're not buying a bloody goalkeeper. So if we can't afford a midfielder, a goalkeeper, and maybe even a striker, which are priorities, we're not signing another left back. Absolutely no chance of that happening. In my opinion, we are a bit critical of Wilcox. I think he's doing a good job, says Ryan. Ryan, not even a super chat, just a normal chat. I can't protect you. You are about to get bombarded. In fairness to Wilcox, I think he's behaving like somebody that hasn't got any experience. There is good bits. You know what, Ryan? You know what, Jason Ryan? You know what, Jason Ryan? Ryan, Michael Ryan, Jack Ryan. Good films. Clear and Present Danger. Patriot Games. Anyway, Ryan, talking about Wilcox. He reminds me of somebody that comes into a business with no experience, works hard, but has no structure. Because I think he is doing good bits, and the club are desperate for us to know about that. The JJ Gabriel thing, I actually thought it was about Jason Wilcox, because even Romano put it in there. If it wasn't for Wilcox, this wouldn't have happened. And if you work at United, you must be like, if you're the under 14s coach, you must think, so I've done nothing then. Jason Wilcox has just walked in and saved the day. And maybe he has and maybe he hasn't, but they are very desperate for him to get positive PR. I think he's doing a good job in areas. I don't think he's done a good job. I think they're very good. Some of the players we've brought in I'm very happy with, but that's not enough. Little bits of good aren't good enough. If you're going to be Man United sporting director, you've got to own it. Now, he might own it in 2 or 3 years, but at the moment, there's good and there's bad. That's what I would say. But I would expect that from somebody that's inexperienced. He was a youth person at Man City, and he was Southampton's sporting director for 1 year. It's a very, very big job to be brought into, and he clearly is learning on the job. Hence, look at the Mbeumo deal, 5 weeks. Hence, look at the sales, nothing. Hence, look at the striker, nothing. Hence, look at Delap. That was his deal. Like, Delap was Wilcox's deal. It was Wilcox who thought he'd done it. It was Wilcox who persuaded Amorim to go with him. And it was Wilcox who was confident he'd got him because he'd worked with him and he chose Chelsea. So there is good, there is bad. I mean, I don't think missing out on Delap's a bad thing if you get Gyökeres, by the way. But, so yeah, he's doing a good job, but I wouldn't say he's done a good job. I think there are bad elements to it as well. When you see the toxic behaviour of Garnacho, Sancho and Rashford, says Barry, I think we can figure out who the dressing room leak was. Thoughts? I don't think there's any point talking about the dressing room leaks. I know about 80% of what happened around the dressing room leaks, and I know what Man United did to stop them. I will never reveal what I know because some people won't believe it because they won't like it. But it wasn't just who you think it was, even if it was them. There was a culture at Man United of doing it, basically. Some players were doing it because everyone else was doing it, and they didn't see the problem with it, and they weren't really doing it from a bad place. They don't do it anymore. It was just the way the club had become. It was accepted behaviour. And basically Amorim didn't want it happening anymore. I'm terrified for the start of the season. I have a sick feeling we'll end up with Calvert-Lewin in August. Who will be our player of the season in your opinion, says Connor? Oh, mate, I can't answer that. I've got no idea. If I had to guess who our player of the season will be next year, Ahmad, Bruno, hopefully a Cunha or an Mbeumo or a Gyökeres or someone like that. I think Amorim was looking at Delap at Sporting, says Alec. Yeah, he was. A lot of people have reported that, but his priority was not Delap. His priority was Gyökeres. But Wilcox was like, Delap could be Gyökeres. But you know my opinion on Delap. I don't think we needed a learner driver. I think we need an experienced striker. I still do. Letting Brentford win the tug of war isn't just about this deal. Caving after 6 weeks just to pay full price signals weakness for future moves. I love this comment, Marius, actually, because I think people I think people go, oh, Mbeumo, it's really boring and everything like that. But there is an element that nobody ever talks about. Like, there is a negotiation going on here. There is a tug of war. I will talk about Martinez and Watkins in a moment because I think there is something there. But going back to what Marius said, I've never really heard anybody talk about it like this because it's always walk away or this, that and the other. There is a tug of war going on there. There is a battle going on there that maybe we haven't really spoken about. So Brentford wants 60 million. That's what they want. Man United offered 45. They then offered 55. Obviously, add-ons were included, and they've said no to both. So United are on 55. They're 5 off what Brentford want. Do they cave and pay what Brentford have wanted for 5 weeks? Or do they walk away, which would be stupid? Or the third option, do they just keep carrying on? Do they just keep letting it go? No one ever talks about the third option. You either walk away, which we shouldn't do. You either pay what Brentford want, and everyone will go, you look really stupid because you could have just paid it 5 weeks ago. You've wasted 5 weeks giving them exactly what they wanted. I don't understand why Brentford want it, by the way. Or you say, we're not going any higher. He wants to come to us. Let's wait it out. You know, are you going to seriously take him on pre-season? Are you going to seriously try and keep him? And you wait and see. The problem is, if Mbeumo's behaving himself and Brentford are like, we would like to keep him, why would you wait? I think the only option is to pay the 60. I don't think... I was reading what Swedish Rumble was saying this morning about how negotiations work. And there's not 6 strands of how a transfer works because there could be numerous things. You look at Bruno and Saudi. I think if his family had said, what an adventure, let's go, he'd be gone. And I think his family didn't really want to go, and he was like unsure about it, so he didn't. So that's completely different to what we're talking about here. But I think if Mbeumo's on strike, Brentford have got to do something about that. He's not. I think if Mbeumo isn't their best player and they're desperate... Sorry, I think if Brentford are desperate for money, you've got them a little bit. He's not on strike. They'd like to keep him. They're not desperate for money. So we don't really have much to... I don't really know what negotiation power we've got to keep carrying on. So, yeah, we could keep negotiating this all through July. But why? You're at 55. They want 60. What more can you really negotiate? You're either going to pay it or you're not. And they're not going to buckle. Why would you buckle if you're Brentford? You'd actually be quite happy. I'm sure Brentford would wish it was August the 31st now and the window would close because they'd be quite happy to keep him. So I think we've just got to pay. But the question is, why did we negotiate for so long? So great point, Marius. Really, really good point. I'm very excited. And I think it is a good point just simply because it raises the question of you can negotiate if you've got a position of power, but where's our power? Apart from the player would like to sign for Man United, where is the power? That doesn't bring the price down because he will stay at Brentford if they can't do it. I'm very excited about the Apollo Tyres deal. We can now sign Calvert-Lewin as 1 inch wonder. Don't mention Apollo Tyres to me again. I'm already it just gets me too excited. I start thinking of 99 and 08 and the glory days. Apollo Tyres, the best signing since Van Persie for me. It's 2013 all over again. Thank you very much. Hi Mark, says Jason Frost. I've been away on vacation and listened to last night's show on the way to work this morning, and you mentioned that you revealed what you read, that you made you 99% sure United are signing Gyökeres. Do you mind repeating? Oh God, Jason. I've said it so many times, but I will do for you, kind sir. I don't remember whether I said I was 99% sure he was going to sign. I think it was Fabrizio who mentioned 99%, but if I did, I did. So basically on that Sunday, out of the blue, there was something about Gyökeres, and somebody that's very prominent in the space exchanged messages with me and basically said Gyökeres to Manchester United is red hot. And obviously for the next few days after that, I think on the Monday, Fabrizio said watch Man United and Fabrizio the next and Gyökeres the next few days. But then on the following Saturday, we had that story about Arsenal. So, I don't know. That's why I was very, very confident that week. Where I am, I'm not mad confident now. We'll just have to see what happens. I still think, though, that it's all very strange because I'm convinced Arsenal want Sesko. Yeah. We shouldn't rush the striker. Wait for Gyökeres, says Saber. Do you think we will get a new striker? If so, who do you think is most likely? He says Red Devils Reborn. Well, look, a few people in the chat have been talking about the scenario with Ollie Watkins and whether it's, true or not. And what I will say is, because I live in the Midlands, and don't worry, I'm not from the Lord of the Rings. The Midlands is a place in the UK, which is in the middle of England. And Aston Villa are quite a local team to me. So I know a few Villa fans. And what I've been told for a long time is that it's very clear that Emery doesn't rate, get on, or necessarily want. I think that's the nicest word, want. Emery doesn't want Martinez or Watkins anymore. So both those players, whether they want to leave or not, Emery would love to move on. So obviously we've heard about Emi Martinez wanting to come to Manchester United. Probably won't happen because Man United can't sell Onana. But they would do a deal with us. And also, they would do a deal with us for Ollie Watkins because they want to cash in on him. And when you look at Ollie Watkins, I mean, until they sold Duran in January, Duran was pushing him out the team on occasion. And, I mean, inexplicably, I don't understand what Emery was doing. If he'd rang me up and I told him not to do it, he was starting Rashford as a striker over Ollie Watkins. So that says a lot about what Emery actually thinks about Ollie Watkins. So, yeah, 100%. They would do a deal, but I don't know whether it will happen or not. If I'm being honest, I don't know. I don't think we will. I mean, I've already covered it on the earlier show. I don't actually think we will go for Ollie Watkins. I don't think it ticks that many boxes. If I'm being honest. What do you think about Rashford and Villa not activating the £40 million transfer? Well, I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding about that. So when we loaned Marcus Rashford to Aston Villa, there was a £40 million clause that could be activated by Aston Villa. But it also had to have the agreement of Marcus Rashford. Now, Aston Villa were never going to activate that anyway because they would have had to pay him 300 grand a week. And they're not in the Champions League. So they were never going to do it anyway. But Rashford was never going to sign for Villa either because although he said it's the happiest he's ever been in his career, he wasn't that happy because he didn't want to go there. He wants to go to Barcelona. So I don't think there's any relevancy on that story apart from it's June the 30th and a lot of like Anthony's loan at Betis ends today. Malacia's loan with PSV ends today. So I just think that, yeah, we all know that there was a £40 million, but both parties had to be happy to activate it. And Rashford wasn't and they weren't. What does it say? I never felt that Rashford wanted to be at Villa any longer than the loan deal. And I never felt that Villa could afford him unless they got Champions League football. And let's not forget, Rashford wanted Barcelona all the way through January. They couldn't get rid of Fati, so they ended up not getting him. So on the final day, he went to Villa. So, yeah, I don't think anything about that. He was never going to go there. Connor says, I'm terrified for the start of the season. I have a sick feeling we'll end up with Calvert-Lewin in August, who will be our player of the season. He won't. He'll be the medical department's player of the season, but he won't be the first team's player of the season. Absolutely not. Don't worry, Mark. Diego Leon is joining us tomorrow. Yeah, you know what, Linda? I'm excited about Leon, but I've seen a few sort of United websites and aggregators talking about Leon like he's the next Roberto Carlos. The great thing about Leon is, the exciting thing about Leon is, he could be the next Gabriel Heinze. He could be the next Paolo Maldini. He could be the next Ben Chilwell. I mean Ben Thatcher. He could be brilliant. He could be crap. No one's got a bloody clue. And yet, some people are talking about him like it's a brand new signing that we're just going to announce tomorrow. We've known about him for 6 months. I'm excited to welcome him. I'm excited to look at him in the US tour, but you can't rebadge you can't reveal a new signing that's not a new signing. We've known about him for months. It's like, what we're going to do next week, announce Mainu as a new contract, like a new signing. Like, I want Mainu to stay. Leon, I'm excited about, but there's a bloody transfer window going on. You know? It's like your missus coming downstairs in new lingerie, but you're trying to watch Man United. You're like, that's great. There's a time for that, and it's not now. You look great, and well done for spending your money, but Man United's on the telly. It's not the time, is it? Run yourself a hot bath, call the midwife on, and we'll talk about this on Friday. You can get that back on. And that's how I feel about like Mainu new contract or Leon. It's not the time. There's more important things going on. That doesn't mean that's not great, but there are more important things going on. And, you know, that's how I feel about it. Is there now strong argument for a Wilcox statue? Says 1 Inch Wonder's on form tonight. He really is. John Duran was a better choice than Watkins, just my opinion, says Juan. Do you know how much John Duran went to Saudi for? I just love everybody in this community, as you know. But I've seen a few people talking about John Duran. But I'm just looking at this. He gets 17 million a year. That's not taxed. So God knows what that is after tax. What that would be here. And did he not go to 65 million quid, I think is what he went to Saudi for. So he went for 65 million pounds, and his wage equivalent here is about 30 million quid a year. So he's probably on about 700 grand a week, isn't he? 600 grand a week, something like that. But people legitimately come into our chat and say we should have gone for John Duran. Yeah, because we can afford 600 grand a week, can't we? Yeah. The club is run by junk owners with no vision, says J-Deep. We will end up paying for overpriced junk players with no credibility. Glazer and Jim will destroy the club into a circus. I really pity on the manager. Look, I haven't really spoken about Sir Jim Radcliffe for a while, but I would ask the question of you. If this is going to work, at what point do you think we'll start to see it work? Because I see people say, look, it's still early days, and it is still early days in a sense. I suppose it's 18 months in, but you look at what Todd Bowley did in the first 18 months, and it shits all over it. You look at what Man City did in their first 18 months. Like, people say it's early days, but it's not early days. Look at what you know, Abramovich did in the first 18 months. So I don't really buy into the whole it's early days. Because I've seen new owners come in and do things very, very quickly, and Todd Bowley would be a prime example of that. I think Chelsea have spent $2 billion now, haven't they, in the time that Todd Bowley's been there. But of course, the big kicker is they're new owners. This is not a new owner. This is just a puppet. This is just a 28% shareholder. He's not the new owner. Whatever his intentions are, everything he does has to be signed off by the Glazers. So I think that's the big problem. People say, when's it going to get better under Sir Jim? But it's not Sir Jim. It's the Glazers. And it's ridiculous that people think it's Sir Jim. Can things get better? I don't know. I really don't know. But it's a very slow process, isn't it? And he said that himself. We're not going to run to make decisions. We'd rather walk to the right decision than run to the wrong decision. And yet, we've run into many bad decisions, haven't we? You know, keeping Ten Hag, spending £300 million on him, getting Dan Ashworth and then sacking him straight away. So I don't think it's early days. I don't buy into that. 18 months in football is a very, very long time. As a manager, if you get 18 months and get sacked, many people would say, well, you had long enough. So 18 months in football for me is a long time. Do I see any signs of things getting better? We've just lost the Europa League final to Spurs and finished 15th in the Premier League. So honestly, no. I think that it's always easy to say the next game's the biggest game. But honestly, I do think that this pre-season, this summer transfer window and the first month of the Premier League season is going to change a lot of minds. And Amorim will be collateral in that, by the way. As much as I don't want him to be. If we start the season badly, it will be Amorim who everyone turns on, unfortunately. But it's the club that's setting this up. There's only one entity that's responsible for the last 12 years of downfall, and that's the ownership. So, look, you can't blame Wilcox or Faval or Barada, really, because they're just doing what people at the top tell them to do. I very much doubt Jason Wilcox is getting WhatsApps and voice notes from Sir Jim every 5 minutes saying, why didn't we just buy Mbeumo for 60 million in June and save all this time? They're probably saying to him, get the price down. And he's probably going, I can't. Or they're going, well, if you don't, you lose your job. It's just, it all comes from the top. So to answer the question, do I think things are going to get better with Sir Jim? I hope so. But we're still owned by the Glazers. Nothing much is changing. And we're probably in the worst position we've ever been under the Glazers. So you'd hope that things can get better. But to what extent, I don't know. But I have said before, if you get Gyökeres up front and you get a goalkeeper in goal and you get Mbeumo and you've already got Cunha, those 4 signings with what we've already got, I'd give us an outside chance of 5th. And 5th could change our world next summer. So that I'm not lying about that. And also, can I just say, the big positive is I don't buy Man United shirts. I'm past all that. I've seen the leaked third kit. I'm going to bed with it. You know, if the missus comes in a laundry after this show, I'd say, I've got a night with the third kit tonight. It's beautiful. It reminds me of the Cantona Crystal Palace kit where he kicked that prat in the stadium. I just love it. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. I'm getting it. Seb's getting it. I just love it. So, I mean, that's that. But that's typical of United, isn't it? You know, we can get a great kit out, but we can't get anybody decent to wear it. Get ready for our new signings, Rashford and Sancho, says Daz. Mate, honestly, I'd love to sit here and go, that won't happen. But how can we all sit here and say how incompetent the football club is and then say there's no chance that Sancho, Garnacho or Rashford are going to play for Man United again? You just don't know what we're going to do. It undermines the manager, of course. Evening, Mark. Hope you and the family are well. I love the United stands. Keep up the great work you do. Hope Man United get the players the manager needs, says Leon. Me and you too, bro. Hope you're doing well. The great Man United have been turned into a Timo version of their previous selves, says Paul Mellier. Everything at the club is fake. Sickening American owners. Can we just get a big shout out for Mike JW as well? He has gifted 25. No, sorry, not 25. 5 memberships. Absolute legend, Mike. You are. Get your questions in. Loving some of the stuff we're getting in tonight. Predict Osimhen's next club, says Mario. I'm going to go for... That noise wasn't a hint, by the way. That was just me being stupid. Predict Osimhen's next club. I'm going to go... Tonight, Matthew, can you remember Stars in Their Eyes? So there used to be this programme called Stars in Their Eyes, and it used to be on, like, Tea Time TV. And basically, if I was on Stars in Their Eyes, there'd be this presenter called Matthew. And there'd be 2 minutes going like, I'm from the Midlands. I run a YouTube channel called The United Stand. And, I'm happily married. And I love trees. It's my favourite thing is just going in my car and finding a different tree that I've never seen before and then just photographing myself next to it in selfie mode. Okay, that's really boring. Who are you going to be tonight? Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be Ollie Mers. And then you walk out, it all smokes up in a doorway, and then you walk out like me and you wave as you go out. It's me, it's me, it's me. You walk out the smoke, you disappear. You come back seconds later, obviously they've edited it, and you go, is that him or is it Ollie Mers? You really look like him. And then you grab the mic, and no matter what, even if you sound like a drowned cat, they'll applaud you because they think you sound like Ollie Mers. So it is like it is like stars in your eyes with Osimhen, isn't it? Because Dodgy Mum says it's not Laurie Whitwell's finest hour. Why? What's happened? It is a bit like with Osimhen, isn't it? Like he's going to walk into the smoke and walk out in a kit. Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to sign for Saudi. And I think that's where he's going to go. I think he's going to go to Saudi. He's not. I mean, look, if we could sign Osimhen, the only way United could sign Victor Osimhen is a la Casemiro or Anthony, where the transfer window just goes to shit. We lose our first 2 games of the season, and the Glazers go under the bed and go, get Osimhen, which is exactly what we did with Casemiro and Anthony. We started the season shit, and it was like panic. So I'd never say never with United, because we do deals that we don't expect to do. But I think the only way we'd get Osimhen is if we just shit ourselves and abandoned every plan we've got and went, chuck the money at Osimhen. But I think Saudi, Mario. Nicholas has gifted a membership. Thank you very much for that, Nicholas. You're an absolute legend. KSWXN says, if you had to pick between Hugo Ekitike or Benjamin Sesko, who would you prefer? Sesko. Let's go Sesko. Yeah. Because he's a striker, whereas I think Ekitike statistically is more of a creative. Lee Galdart says, can I play devil's advocate? You can. You've already come up with a good comment tonight. He says, Amorim has never had a proper look at Sancho. I remember he came back for pre-season last year under Ten Hag. No, Amorim has never had a proper look at Sancho, but Robert McCormack's going to love me for this. Robert McCormack said in January, it's very clear that Ineos wanted Rashford out the club regardless of what Amorim wanted because of his wage. And I don't even think that's a conspiracy theory. They want Casemiro gone as well. This is a football club, right? This is a football club where Ineos walked in and went, Carol and Dave, you're sacked. I know you've been here for 30 years and everybody likes you, but you're sacked. Like, they got rid of half of our workforce regardless of who you were. Don't think for 1 minute they didn't look at United's wage bill and go, get rid of those top 5 earners now. And I think they did look at Rashford and they did look at Casemiro and they went, get rid of them. They'll definitely look at Sancho the same. So even if Amorim wants to keep Sancho, what would the point be in that? The board would be saying, he's on 300 grand, 250 grand a week. We can't afford that for him. And you've got Mbeumo and Cunha who play in his position. So I don't see Sancho coming back. No. Mark, Sir Jim strikes me as the type of man who would ask a prostitute for a discount, says Bounty Hunter. At the end of the day, that's disgusting. I'm a billionaire. I own Nice, which means nice. I'm not going to go with prostitutes. I refute that statement, Bounty Hunter, and you should take it back. It's filth. You know, I bought Nice because I'm nice. I'm not interested. Mark, this day 14 years ago, says P. Don, I had a very bad spinal cord injury working. I broke my neck. I just discovered this channel a few years ago. Now a member, and I check in here most days when I'm in pain. Thanks for the distraction, says P. Don. Oh, mate. Thank you very much for your super chat. Thank you very much for sharing that story. And I hope the pain isn't too bad, because that's a long time to have to put up with stuff like that. So, but look, as with many people, I think it's a community where everybody, you know, gets on and enjoys it, and you're a very valued member of it, P. Don. And I'm just seeing. Yeah, well, neck pain's horrible anyway, isn't it? Not saying I've had anything like that. Ineos just a front to allow Glazers to sack staff and bulldozers Old Trafford while perpetuating the debt. It's worse. Biggest spin ever. I hope it's not a spin, Boffman. You're not the first person I've heard that say, but Mike Kay says the community is goat, which it is. I hope that's not the case. I'd be massively disappointed. I mean, some of us are eyes open to the fact that it could be the case, but you know what? If the Glazers were in charge and they sacked half the workforce, everyone would have gone mad. If the Glazers were in charge and they were raising ticket prices, everyone would have gone mad. If the Glazers were in charge and they were bulldozing Old Trafford, everyone would have gone mad. So I think that in that regard, I really hope that he isn't just a front for us on that. Ray Carl's just gifted a membership. Thank you, Ray. Hope you're doing well. And Emily Derry says, I bought Nice because I thought it was a packet of biscuits. Turns out it's a football club. And I hate Nice biscuits as well. They're horrible. They're not nice at all. You know what? I used to go around my stepdad's mum and dad's, so my step-grandparents, and they'd always get the biscuit tin out and make a cup of tea. And there'd always be Nice biscuits in there. You know, you'd go in there and you go, oh, chocolate bourbon's nice. Even a custard cream, not my favourites. If hobnobs were in there, you were laughing. Even a ginger, what do they call them? Ginger nuts. It's not a sex thing. Well, them biscuits, they're round and sort of harder, but if you dip them in your tea, they do go quite soft and the taste of ginger. But Nice biscuits or nice biscuits, bloody horrible. I'd rather have a rich tea. Rich tea have got to be the Jordan Henderson of biscuits. Nice biscuits or Nice biscuits have got to be the, I can't even think, repulsive. Name me a Di Maria. They are called ginger nuts. Yeah, some other people are going to think it's something else. Mojo's just gifted 10 memberships. You're an absolute legend, mate. Hope you're doing well. I always feel like you come into the show late on. Mike JW says, let's have a big shout out to the best community on YouTube, the legendary mods and yourself. Big up to Goldio and everyone. It's nice to get that, Mike. I mean, look, I will admit, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. How long we've been doing this? But no, seriously, I'm not in tune with the mood. I read the comments. Let's just say some of them can be quite horrible. Which I'm used to. But I think most of it just comes from a place of frustration. Like, there are people who sometimes say, why bother doing a show? There's nothing to talk about. And I'm sort of like, we did 2 months, twice a day in COVID. Like, there was literally nothing to talk about. It's a community more than anything. And that's the thing that sort of keeps us going, because I think a lot of it comes from a place of, you know, we love this football club and we love football and we want it to do well. But again, I think the big criticism I have of myself, and I don't know whether you lot feel the same, is that I fall into the trap every year. Every summer transfer window, I go, I love the transfer window. If we can get rid of this lot and we can bring this in, we might be able to have a good season next year. And every year, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You know, every year June passes and nothing happens. And look, I've watched too many transfer windows now. I already know what's going to happen. There are people out there that are a little bit, you know, optimistic, naive, dare I say, stupid, that think that we're still going to have a good transfer window. When have we ever had a good transfer window that starts on July the 1st? And I know we've got Cunha, but we've sold nobody and we've bought nobody other than Cunha. We need a goalkeeper when we're clearly not going to get one. We need a striker who's clearly not going to be here for pre-season if we do get one. We need a midfielder and we're clearly not going to get one. And they're priorities. Some would say we need a centre-back and a wing-back as well. Never going to get them. We need 4 or 5 players out of the club today. We'll be lucky if we get rid of them by August the 31st. So I think we've seen this movie before, and I think I'm preparing for not a terrible transfer window, but I like to rank it out of 10. Everything. I like the bra, but yeah, I'm talking about Mrs. Goldbridge in her lingerie. If you've tuned in late, you're not going to grasp it. But I like to rank everything out of 10. You know, me and Seb were playing football earlier. I hit a shot that went in off the post. He said, what a worldie. I said, in your world, it probably is. You'll be thinking about that for the next few weeks. For me, probably give it a 6 out of 10. I didn't catch it quite right. So I like to rank a transfer window out of 10. Don't ever tell people on a night out what the score is. Like, I made a fateful mistake one night. We were out in Ibiza on a lad's holiday, and we got talking to a group of about 7 girls from Ireland, and there was 4 or 5 of us, and everyone had a few drinks, and we're sat around this sort of table outside, really great atmosphere, and I don't know how we got onto it, but one of my mates said, oh, he always on a night out, when he spots a girl, gives him a mark out of 10. So one of these girls goes, go on then, go around the table and give us a mark out of 10. And I went, I can't. And they were like, you can, come on, do it. I said, no, it's too much trouble. I'm not going to do it. Please, please, please. I said, right, I will do it, but I'm telling you now, don't moan at me if it doesn't go the way you want. Now, do you want me to do it? And they went, yeah. Well, let's just say they left. And then my mates fell out with me as well. But I said, they did ask. They did ask. Because I don't lie. I'm not a liar. I could have sat there and given like scores better. And one of them said you could have given them at least a 7. And I went, well, I did give one a 7, but she'd already got up and left with her mates before that. And then the other one said, well, why did you start with the ugly ones? And I thought, I'll make my way up. Anyway, it's not nice to call them ugly, I said. But, you know, they might be nice on the inside. I was just doing it on pure looks. We've only just sat down. But going back to what I was saying, I do like to rank a transfer window, and we've done it every year. And where we are at the moment, you know, I think we needed a minimum 8 out of 10, ideally a 9. I'm never going to ask for a 10. That's unachievable. We needed an 8. It would have been amazing to get a 9. We couldn't do with anything lower than a 7, and a 7's a risk. I think at the moment, if we're lucky, we might get a 6. We might get a 6. But remember, outgoings are a massive part of a summer transfer window rank. Let's see what Friday brings. Mbeumo deal, here we go, or more haggling, says Ray. Thank you, Ray. I just want to give a shout out to, actually, Osimhen, we'll do it in a minute because I've way overrun. Way overrun. Rizzing with Goldbridge, says Kristen. I'd love to have been on that table, Mark. Imagine if it was being live streamed. It wasn't that dramatic. I only got to about the 3rd person, and I just remember drinks being slammed down on the table and they left. One of them, actually, you could tell I was right because I'd given her a 4. Mainly because she looked selfish, and she did down her drink quickly before she left. But as I said, I started off, you know, you don't I said to my mate, you know when you've got to give people a score and there's like 6, you don't give first prize straight away. You start off in 6th place, in 5th place, in 4th place. I would have got to better scores, but they stormed off. And honesty, you see. How many more transfers do you think we'll get done, says Ricardo. We'll get Mbeumo done. Striker. 3, including Mbeumo. Hopefully I'll get more, but show some respect for Mrs. Goldbridge, says Coyle. Oh, I do. I love how Jim expects us to trust him, and his blueprint in football is essentially failure. I want this over in Qatar. I now have egg on my face, says Sean Little. Favourite random transfer story this summer so far, says Connor. I'm not in that headspace, Connor, to have a favourite. I'm not in a good place to have a favourite random transfer story at the moment, but I'll have a think on that for the morning show. Lee Berman says, 3 years a member, been watching for about 5, best community there is. Cheers, Lee. Thank you very much. And I hope FC 26 is better than FC 25. It's the worst game, says JB. I need to get back on my career mode this week, actually. There's no news about Richard Rios. DV. I wish there was, but there isn't. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching tonight. Absolute legends as always. Fantastic show. Really enjoyed it, actually. Really good show. Hopefully this is the start of a good week then. There's a good vibe. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you on the next one. And to those who understand on the 8 o'clock show, I don't necessarily end it straight away because there's always a little bit of extra content. I've just got to come back to the biscuit conversation and say that, Hadi, we were talking about ginger nuts, we were talking about Nice biscuits, we were talking about chocolate bourbons, we were talking about hobnobs. I've got to say, Hadi has absolutely dropped the mic on a biscuit that is an unsung legend that doesn't get enough credit. But oh my God, if you've got a cup of tea and you've got one of these, you've got a bloody weapon in your mouth, in your hand. And I suppose a wet weapon in your mouth. Didn't think that one through. Malted milk. But I can beat a malted milk because what about a chocolate malted milk? OMG. They're brilliant biscuits. They are brilliant biscuits, the malted milk. Yes, yeah, very hot today in the UK. Hottest day of the summer so far, and the hottest day, opening day of Wimbledon ever, apparently. I've got to be honest, I was out in the garden and I thought, it's hot, but it's been hotter. But no cloud. No, it's been humid and rainy in Ireland, apparently. I think we had a north-south divide, honestly. What's your thoughts on Glastonbury? I'll tell you what my thoughts are on Glastonbury. And it's the same thoughts about people who try to bring politics into football. We don't do it because we're here to talk about football. Not because people's personal politics aren't important. Whatever you think, whatever your cause, whatever you're passionate about is absolutely fine. But we try to steer clear of it in this community because we're here to talk about football. And I've got to say, my only comment about Glastonbury is that, and I even saw Fatboy Slim doing a DJ set by putting a picture of Donald Trump in front of it and going like that for about 2 minutes. And I thought, that's not even the ones that people are talking about. And I thought, you know what? Noel Gallagher got it right. Pick up your guitar, play your DJ set, and sing your songs. And that's what I think about this. Start an 8 o'clock show, talk about football, end the show. That's my thoughts on it. I'm not against people having different opinions and different politics, etc. But, you know, I turned it on last year and Coldplay were brilliant for 2 hours. It would ruin it if they started preaching politics at me. And I think that's my thought. Ireland has been very nice, says Aaron, but a bit overcast and rainy. Napolitano's biscuits, now better. Ginger nuts or digestive, says Liam. I do like a chocolate digestive. I wouldn't like a chocolate ginger nut. That just sounds... yeah. I'm going off biscuits now. I really am. Have you ever tried a chocolate-rich tea? Yeah, I just don't like the texture of it. It's too smooth. It doesn't... For me, a biscuit is a biscuit that you can dunk and you're not in fear of it breaking. And malted milks hold... I mean, look, the hobnob, you dip that in your tea, you've only got half your tea left, and then you eat it and it's dry. I think the hobnob drinks the tea and it disappears. You did your job well, Mark. No free drinks for them, says Bounty Hunter. The big question was I disappointed when they got up and went? And I've got to say, I wasn't with Mrs. Goldbridge then, so she can't complain. When you sat in Ibiza with your mates, having a drink round a table with 7 Irish girls, and they get up and walk away, I wouldn't have minded if the 3 I ranked had got up and walked away, but there was 4 that I would like to, let's just say, carry on talking to. But you've got to respect loyalty, you know. They stuck with the ugly ones. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Take care. Love this. Love the show. Wake up. White chocolate fingers. Bite off both ends and suck the tea through it. Game changer, says Conor McCarthy. There we go. Tempted to say I've never been a fan of chocolate fingers. Take care. Speak to you all in a bit.